technical advice, some equipment, and also genetics in the way of live cattle into the marketplace, which shows how we can increase the market and to benefit the local dairy farmers and also the general industry in the country. Dairy is such a good agricultural industry in the way that it draws so many other sub-feeder groups into the farm. So you can subcontract out growing of the feed to local farmers. You supply job opportunities to local people to milk the cows and work on the farm. It provides an equipment and a service industry around it, and then it also flows into the milk processing, the transportation, everything. Whereas some other agricultural pursuits probably don't incorporate as many subjects or areas of the country as dairy does. The most important thing we looked at when we looked at Sri Lanka is where is the benefit going to be drawn from, and how is this system going to be going to benefit the country. Sri Lanka, the projects that we do don't have to physically, financially cover themselves, because they might be getting other areas of investment through training of local staff, through delivering genetics to the country, or showing investment how it can happen. So we had to look at that. Are we going to be able to tick off the key objectives that we wanted to look at in Sri Lanka? So as you see, with the GDP rising, generally so does the consumption of proteins, particularly with dairy. Sri Lanka was started from a low production, low intensity farming systems, which consisted of tropical breeds of cattle and also a large buffalo herd. Our system, we moved away from the tropical breeds of cattle, and we're taking Bos Taurus, more temperate styles of cattle, to Sri Lanka, and we've done this in several phases, which I'll go on to speak a minute about in just a second. Milk consumption was a big, and the use of milk powder was a big determining factor in our project with the government. They wanted to take down their reliability on imported milk powder, so of which at the moment is $350 million a year industry, and take some of that benefit back to the local farmers through some of the demonstration farms which we've been building. So we set up some systems that what we like to call turnkey closed loop systems, where everything that's produced on the farm is reused on the farm except for the milk, and we set it up from everything from the animals to the equipment to the infrastructure and the technical management. As I'll go on to show in a second, that we're capturing all the waste and spreading it on the fields as fertiliser, which cuts down on that requirement of the farm, and also covers the environmental aspects of dairy farming. This goes on to talk about the projects which we're doing. We've partnered with the government to look at 3 different styles of projects. The first project we're looking at is the renovating of existing dairy farms. So we've taken a dairy farm in the temperate environment, and we've used the infrastructure that was there to a point. We've renovated it. We've also brought in increased technology in the way of milking parlours, feeding material, the machinery to harvest the crops, etc., as well as 2,000 Australian dairy cows. The second phase is a 2,500 turnkey project in which we're starting at a greenfield site, which was bare land, and now we're turning that into a full dairy with enough fodder grown on the farm to support it, and also all of the cattle were included. The third phase, which we're about to embark on, is supplying 20,000 head of Australian cattle to the local governments to distribute to local farmers to increase the productivity of the Sri Lankan herd. I'm getting tight on time here, so I'll keep pushing through some of these more commercial slides, but this goes on to explain some of the milk price consumption in Sri Lanka. Our turnkey dairy farms, this is the closed loop circuit. We take the manure from the dairy, we put it onto the fields to grow the fodder, which goes back into the cow, comes out as milk, and also waste products which go back on the fields again. Again, we produce 68,000 tonnes of manure, makes 33,000 tonnes of feed, which goes on to make 8,000 tonnes of milk. I'll quickly go through some of these. The areas we had to address was which I saw as the most important, was the feed that we're putting into the cattle. If you want to produce a high quality and high volume product, you need to put the best ingredients in. Similar to a car, you want to get the most out of your car, you need to put the best fuel in. So we concentrated on feed, we concentrated on the technical management of the dairies, and to a lesser point to the infrastructure and technology in which we implemented. So this is some of the construction that we're doing. You'll see the top left is manure pits, irrigation ponds, which then goes back onto the fields to create a fodder crop, being corn and silage, which then is fed back to the cows. We installed pivots to create an artificial environment in which we can grow fodder all year round to supply the dairy. And we're also building custom sheds, and this relates more to the turnkey 2,500 greenfield site, where it's in the tropical zone, but we're milking temperate cattle. And we've been able to do that by creating an artificial environment for the cattle to live in, which is similar to their natural environment in Australia. We've done that through fans and sprinkler systems to cool the animals when they're hot. So effectively you're milking them in hot, humid conditions, but they still think it's a temperate environment. This is some of the construction that we've been doing. Obviously everything had to be brought into the site, both locally and international materials to build the dairy. It's still under construction, but we hope to deliver the last of the cattle there at the middle of next month. This is what one of the sheds looks like. They're fed down the middle alleyway. The dry stalls are in the middle, and some loafing areas on either side. We have fans over the day stalls and over the feeding bunk. It's a bit hard to see in size, but that shed is 236 metres long and 90 metres wide, and houses approximately 700 cattle. These are some of the Australian livestock we've delivered. The top, the left-hand side, for you, is cattle that are living in the temperate upcountry environment in Sri Lanka, where no cooling is needed because of the temperate climate in which they live. And we've been milking there for 3 years now. And the right-hand side is the new construction we're building at the moment, being new sheds, headlocks, cooling, and also the new milking parlours at the bottom. This is some small facts that I found on the Indian dairy sector. I'm sure you're all very well aware of them, so I won't push too much. only to say that I think the opportunity arises for the increase in productivity of the herd existing in India rather than bringing live cattle into Australia, from Australia. So we can help with genetics, but it's probably not a bulk import deal. The constraints on the trade, and I just want to touch on this briefly and not put too much on it. India's well positioned with the large herd that they have at the moment to benefit from some of Australian genetic increases. So we have to look at that. Bringing live cattle from Australia, we have to be very, very careful, and Philip touched on it briefly before about the biosecurity. Australia has a very low disease burden and in the country, so the animals aren't exposed to a lot of diseases in their lifetime. When they come to a foreign country, we have to be very, very careful that we take all the biosecurity measures we can, because once they are infected with that strain, because they have no natural immunity to it, it can devastate the dairy itself, the milk yield and everything. There is currently an agreed health conditions between Australia and India, but they are somewhat muddied in what it's expected from both sides. So currently, you can't bring live cattle from Australia to India. What we need to do, if we want to continue this trade and get it back up and running, we need some endeavour and some push from not only the Australian side but the Indian side as well, to try and free up, get the governments talking, and therefore we can begin to answer the trade. That's about all I've got today. So I think we'll have questions in a bit. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm heading off, so I just wanted to say again, thank you everybody for coming. Just on the free trade thing, just because I know in other parts of India, when people see the size of Australia on the map, they freak out and think that all of our agricultural produce will come to a place like India and decimate the local industry. It was a big issue we had with the Chinese FTA that we negotiated last year. And we did the numbers and we told the Chinese, if Australia starved its own people and fed them nothing, we could only feed 60 million of 1.3 billion people in China. And because the Australian cost structures are so high, the value added is a very high-end product that only goes into the top end of the market. So you're not really competing all the way down. And I think the same sort of dynamic would apply to India. So in that sense, some agricultural liberalisation, we know agriculture is sensitive in every market. We feel there are certain areas where it can be done in India. But as was just mentioned by the speakers, so much of what we have to offer is not just selling stuff to India, it's bringing capabilities, technology, productivity, and working in partnership. And if we can achieve more of that through our FTA agreement we're negotiating, then we'd be delighted to do that. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you. Thank you, High Commissioner. Look, we're not going to do the Q&A after dairy. We'll do the Q&A at the end if that's okay, because we're running a little tight on time. So if it's okay with the audience, I'd like to move straight to the aquaculture program now. Our next speaker, or our first speaker for the aquaculture session, is Mr. Roy Palmer. Roy has consulted extensively across the globe over many decades, is highly regarded internationally. He's currently the Director of the World Aquaculture Society and past President of the World Aquaculture Society Australia Pacific Chapter. He's the Executive Director of the Association of International Seafood Professionals, and he's the President and Executive Director of Aquaculture Without Frontiers. Thank you, Roy.
Thank you. Thank you. Not so many distinguished guests, and for all our friends that have come for a long way to this meeting today. Appreciate being here. Thank you to the Tamil Nadu government, to the Australian High Commission and Austrade for inviting us. And I'm hoping to sort of get you a little bit more excited about fisheries and aquaculture and the future that there is in this particular industry. I do want to acknowledge my colleagues from the World Aquaculture Society and my own association, Association of International Seafood Professionals, and all of those that are associated with that. It's really good to see some of you here today. Fantastic. Thank you for that. And I will be back again in Chennai in November, at the end of November, for Shrimp 2015. So I hope to see you all again at that time as well. And anyone who wants a copy of this presentation, you can see someone from Australia or myself, and we'll make sure that these presentations are available to you. Because obviously, you know, you can't absorb all this information all in one go, and sometimes it's good to have a quick look back at some of the presentations. Some fantastic stuff there from the dairy industry, and unfortunately we don't have companies like Willard's when it comes to fisheries and aquaculture in Australia. No one with that real depth. So I'm not going to talk so much about those issues, but I do want to talk to you about the blue economy. I want to open, unfortunately, the presentation I've got here isn't the one that I actually organised, because I stupidly forgot to bring that with me from the hotel today. So this is an earlier version. But I do hope to open your eyes to the blue economy and get you engaged in what this means. And I understand your Prime Minister here in India is talking strongly about this, and I think it's something that we all need to grasp. We're going to talk a little bit about fisheries. All the aquaculture talk is going to be done by Ravi, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about workforce capacity and capability and industry standards in development, because I think that's a very important aspect from our industry point of view. The blue economy. I love this slide. This really is an exciting slide. It tells you about all the opportunities that are going to be coming forward. It's a bit like being back at the very beginning of agriculture, when, you know, no one really knew what that excitement was going to be in agriculture and how that would grow. Now we're going to look at the marine area and drive the blue economy from all these new areas. It's quite fascinating when you travel the world to see how lots of different countries are picking them up in different ways, and how India has this great opportunity. Well, one of the things that we need to do is to get governments to really get involved in this blue economy, because we need to change the way that governments operate and the way they utilise, and you could look at the way we use water and how we're going to grow things in that water. You know, you don't see anywhere in the world a government department which is just about handling things in the water, that controls everything. And I think that's going to be part of the future. And here's an opportunity now for countries like India to take these sort of steps forward and make this an exciting opportunity. We can't always be looked at, as we are in many countries around the world, just like we've looked at the way we handle things in the land.